Hello, welcome to this video. This video is brought to you by ECOHOLICS. This is the first video of this financial year, that is in the month of April. I will be talking about the review of Indian economy in the month of April with a little bit of background of every sector. So first of all, we need to understand about the fiscal position of our economy. Fiscal position is the most important position which we talk about in the recent budget. The budget talk about mainly the fiscal deficit. Fiscal deficit is the most important indicator of fiscal policy. The 3.5% target in the last fiscal was achieved successfully, and this year's our finance minister Arun Jaitley set the target of 3.2%. It is in the line of N.K. Singh committee appointed to review the Fiscal Responsibility and Budget Management Act 2003. He recommended several measures to reduce the fiscal deficit of the central government. There are so many other policies, like he also talk about to reduce the debt to GDP ratio to 60% of central government and the state government combined, that is currently stands at 68.5% in 2016. So the N.K. Singh introduced the new concept of debt to GDP. He also suggests that that scrapping of Fiscal Responsibility Budget Management Act and introduced a new Debt and Fiscal Responsibility Act. He also emphasized on the escape clause, that is, it means that if due to certain circumstances like war, drought, natural calamity or any other international crisis, the government should get a headroom of 0.5%. That is, government can deviate from its fiscal deficit target by 3 to 3.5%. One of the member of N.K. Singh committee is Arvind Subramaniam, Chief Economic Advisor of Central Government. He was of the opinion that the escape clause should be 0.3%, but N.K. Singh resort to 0.5% by giving more room to the central government in order to invest in the economy when the private investment is dried up due to twin balance sheet problem, which economic survey talked about. If we talk another aspects of why fiscal deficit achieved so recently by achieving the target back to back, there is also a comment on the base effect. The nominal GDP also increased from the rupees 150.6 lakh crore to 151.9 lakh crore. So that is the base effect also helping the fiscal deficit to achieve its target. Now talking about the most important or most awaited tax reforms in the history of independent India, that is GST is on the door, and the finance minister said about that on the 1st July he will implement the GST. But there are several issues left out. The most important is fitment of the rate. On the meeting on 18th May in Srinagar, that GST Council will decide the fitment of products in every slabs, like 5%, 12%, 18% and 28%, which good comes into which tax slab. So this is the very important meeting of GST Council going to be held on 18th May 2017. After that, the picture of GST will be clear, and the after GST clearing, the company needs more time to resort to the new infrastructure, that is GST network, popularly known as. That is why company needs more time, and the clause like anti-profiteering clause is vulnerable to the companies. The company is saying that the new tax reform should give more time, and anti-profiteering clause will discourage their switching from this new tax regime. But the government clarifies that anti-profiteering clause can be used in a major circumstances, not unusual. Now coming on to the next sector, that is the energy sector of India. We know that government set the target of 175 gigawatt to achieve by 2022 on the renewable energy basis. This is the bedrock of India's energy sector in the recent years. The 175 gigawatt target is mainly dependent on 100 gigawatt solar power plant. Solar power plant is very crucial. Being a tropical country, India is very well versed with the solar insolation. That will be very helpful for India to achieve its energy security, because according to the World Bank, India is the largest unelectrified population of the world. So our Prime Minister is promoting Digital India. We need to electrify villages. So the first of all, the solar energy is very important. If we talk about 100 gigawatt of solar energy, in which rooftop installation is very crucial, because the land scarcity in India is very well known fact, because we need to increase the agricultural area, we need to increase the forest cover also, which is currently 23%, we need to increase to 33%, and another infrastructure bottlenecks, like we need to increase the infrastructure like housing for all scheme. So we need lot of land and we cannot afford to install solar plants. So that is why government is introducing the over canal solar plants, or rooftop also a very good idea. So government, it's very important initiative promoting solar power plant on the rooftop. If we talk about fiscal implication of energy sector schemes, first of all, the major implication is on the state finances. The Uday schemes implemented by most of the state, all around 25 states till now is accepting the Uday scheme. Uday scheme is Ujjwal Discom Assurance Yojana, which is very important in achieving the energy security for the villages or for overall the country. But the Uday led to a debt-ridden states, which is a very concern, because combined fiscal deficit of all the state is 3.6%. On the other hand, center is reducing its fiscal deficit, but the state government's fiscal deficit is a concern because it is on the higher part. Now coming on to the export and import sector. We all know that ease of doing business is the major concerns of this government. We achieved the 130th rank in the last year, despite being taken several reforms, but the ease of doing ranking considered only Delhi and Mumbai, but the reform also taken in many other places like in Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, any South Indian states, Rajasthan, Haryana, even northeastern states also doing well. So the next year awaits that the ease of doing business ranking will improve the India's credibility in the international market. If we consider about exports are picking up in the last 2 months. Exports are mainly dependent on global demand. Global demand is reviving in the recent months. After slowing down from the Chinese economy in 2015, now the global economy is recovering. But the concern is India's export also dependent on its imports, because India imports crude oil and refine them, then exports it to the other countries. India imports gold, then converted or making jewelry and then exported. India also exporting engineering goods, clothes, textile, apparels. These are all very important aspects of India's export sector. Export is very important in order to earn the foreign exchange reserves. That is why foreign trade policy of 2015-2020 is focusing on merchandise exports from India scheme. So these schemes are very important in order to increase the export earnings, and also the target was to double the export earnings. India's share is 2.1 in global exports and 3.6 in global imports is a very visible for India's trade deficit concerns. India's majority are service export surplus countries, so we need to speed up our manufacturing sector in order to revive our Make in India program, which is last year not doing well, and also focusing on improving investment domestically and also attracting investment from many other surplus capital countries like Abu Dhabi and Singapore. Now coming on to the import policy, we recently abolished the minimum import price, which established as a anti-dumping duty for the last 9 months from Japan and South Korea. We all know that India is the third largest producer of steel in the world, but first is China, which is way ahead. It is around 789 million tons of steel production every year, when other than the second place Japan is at 104 million tons and India is around 89 million tons, away behind China, around 10 times more than China is producing more than India. So this is a major concern. The National Steel Policy of 2017 suggested that India's production is well up to the mark, but the India's consumption of steel is very below level. So India need to consume more steel in its infrastructural projects in order to revive its steel production and make its steel globally competitive. Coming on to the agricultural sector, the most important and recent policy of agricultural is pulses prices coming down. Last year pulses prices soaring on the high rates, but due to government measure, which is a good for farmers, but actually increasing MSP at the same time, increasing imports of pulses also concerned, because increasing MSP, farmers attracted towards pulses production, and also at the same time government imports pulses from abroad, and that is why it creates excess supply in the market, and this demand supply mismatch creates prices to slump, and the farmer resorted only to a meager price which is not deservable by the farmers. The pulses price is very important because apart from wheat and rice, pulses is the third important crop, which is also a part of National Food Security Mission. So that is, a pulses surplus is very vital for the country's food security. Now another current topic is a loan waiver by the Uttar Pradesh government. The loan waiver is not good for honest credit culture, because debt-ridden commercial bank is very facing the huge problem of non-performing assets. The corporate debt and the agriculture debt is a very different altogether. First of all, we need to understand the difference. In the corporate debt, if the defaulter company defaults on the bank loan, the bank end up as a part of equity to their account. But in the agriculture sector, there is no provision of equity, so the bank loses all the money. But the farmers only waive the loan, or the government helps them to waive the loans, or denying their interest rate. This is not a very good honest culture, because this is a trend followed by in every part of India, or this will consider as a domino effect. Now UP, now Tamil Nadu farmers also in a debt ridden situation due to drought and the Kaveri water issue. There are so many issues, so government needs to build a long term policy, either to waive the loan, they invest in irrigation facility. We all know that India is considered 17.5% of global land, and but only 4% of fresh water. So this is, and that 4% of fresh water, in which 78% used by agriculture sector. There are a lot of concerns about flood irrigation in the country. So government has been promoting micro irrigation, that is drip irrigation and sprinkler irrigation. That many empirical evidences considered that 40% up to 40% water saved by micro irrigation. So this will a very beneficial policy in agriculture sector. We have to incentivize farmers to save power. We give lot of freebies to them, but by saving power, by incentivizing them to save power, this is very important for energy security also. Apart from this, direct benefit transfer of fertilizer subsidy is also a good option in order to curb the leakages. But the most important is diversification of agriculture. We are in a 21st century and we are underway the second green revolution, second generation green revolution. That is very important that forward and backward linkages are well connected by agriculture. The project like eNAM is very important because eNAM provides a national agriculture market for farmers. The farmers can fetch a good price or a reasonable price for their produce. Now the government is allowing farmers to sell any of the mandis, so there is no compulsion like under APMC Act that farmers should sell at a specific or a particular mandi. So there will be a good reform, and in order to cut the intermediaries also, the farmer will get the reasonable price for their produce. So diversification is very important. Another two scheme like Pradhan Mantri Krishi Sinchai Yojana, which government allotted around 7,000 crore this budget, and the Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana, which is a very important scheme to insurance the crop failure in the conditions of drought. So that is why the farmer policy is very vital for the food security mission also. Now coming on to the monetary sector. The most important problem in monetary sector India is the credit growth. Credit growth is very slow in the recent times due to the twin balance sheet problem, which highlighted by the economic survey. Government also telling banks to go to debt market in order to raise their capital, because due to the low tax base or the narrow tax base by the government is not able to recapitalize the bank. The NPA stands for 9.64 lakh crore, that is a huge sum, and the stressed asset, which is restructured asset plus NPAs, is around 13 lakh crore. So there is a huge money, and government infuses the capital of around 70,000 crore. So that is a very meager amount in front of these NPA, huge NPAs pile up. On that will be 70,000 for 4 years. So this is not up to the mark, but the taxpayers' money is also wasting by infusing the capital. So government comes out with the two new concepts of para and bad banks. These two concepts pioneered by Arvind Subramaniam, the central government's chief economic advisor. He was of the opinion that asset reconstruction company, which was previously buying the bad assets from the banks and then they resell that in the market, but the asset reconstruction companies not playing their part or not performing up to their mark. That is why the new concept of bad bank or public asset rehabilitation agency, that is called para, is come into the picture. If we talk about monetary policy, recent monetary policy of the April bi-monthly policy increased the reverse repo rate. Increase the reverse repo rate in order to squeeze the excess liquidity due to the account of demonetization. Around 4 lakh rupees of excess liquidity RBI is looking to suck from the economy in order to revive the growth. If we're talking about rating agencies, lot of rating agencies is still ranking India at a lower path, while India is performing on its GDP, also performing on its fiscal deficit targets. That is why government is need to revamp a lot more, that the credit agency should take part in this concern. If we talk about merger of the bank, SBI merger is a good thing, but we cannot merger is not the solution actually, because merger creates some problem also, like hierarchy in the organization, like branches in the economy. So there are so many issues of merger is not the permanent solution. If we talk about infrastructure sector, infrastructure is a very important for any developing economy, but the most important as being a developing economy, that the funding gap is a very big problem. That is why India invited National Investment Infrastructure Fund, in which Abu Dhabi and lot of other countries invested huge funds in order to in order to fill the gap of funding in the India. If we talk about quality of infrastructure standards, there is a new concept that infrastructure standards should be measured on quality based, because many of the developing countries first look in the quality of infrastructure, then they invest. So there must be a standard of quality infrastructure. What are the standards that infrastructure meet? If we talk about railway regulatory board is a very good initiative in the name of a railway development authority, which consists of one chairperson and the two other members, which is a good initiative, because we need a regulatory body in order to attract the private investment in the railway. This railway development authority will be of advisory in nature for the interim period, but the government is looking forward to give more teeth to this body. If we talk about civil aviation sector, the UDAN scheme, Uday Desh Ka Aam Nagrik, is a very important scheme in order to revive the civil aviation sector and Air India. So regional airports, 31 regional airport dormant, which are led dormant, it's identified to revive their flight connectivity to major cities of the country, because it will improve the tourist footfalls in many other areas. So our Prime Minister initiated a scheme via a Delhi Shimla flight. So this is also a good initiative. Now on the last part of this video, outlook of the world economy. The most important Federal Reserve rate hike in 2016 not well impacted the Indian economy, but according to Janet Yellen, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, the more hike will come in the 2017. Although these past hike in the policy rates of Federal Reserves is offsetted by Japan and European Union's monetary easing, but coming policy rate hike will impact the developing economy. In outflow of the funds from the developing to the developed economy, this is not a very good concern, because in order to revive the foreign institutional investors, India need to attract with the high policy rates. And the more important role is now domestic institutional investor, because foreign institutional investor depends on global demand, but domestic institutional investor stabilizes our stock exchange market. The another problem is the buzzword which are going on in the last few months after the election of Donald Trump, the deglobalization. The deglobalization is a wave, and it is facing off many other concerns like developed economies, inward-looking approach, the policy of protectionism adopted by many of the Western countries, also the election in France. The Marine Le Pen, one of the candidates, also based her campaign on the deglobalization or exit from the European Union. So if she came to the power, if she will come to the power, then it will be a very interesting to see what is the future of European Union. Another important is the success of trade facilitation agreement. On 2nd March it was implemented, but now legislative requirement of member countries is required. But the finalized draft on the 2nd March of 2017 trade facilitation agreement is the success after the 2001 Doha round. So it is a very good positive sign. But India needs to promote trade facilitation agreement in services also. Another important is RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, with China and plus China, India, Japan, South Korea, Australia, New Zealand, plus 10 ASEAN countries. Also a very important or vital policy after US withdrawal from TPP and TPIP. So that is the major concerns in the developing countries. Now H1B visa and the Brexit also one of the concerns of protectionism. So that's it for this video. Please like, share, subscribe.